Good morning, my lovely creatives. Today I will be talking to you about how to gain confidence in your artwork. My name is Irene and I'm an art teacher and illustrator, but I was not always confident in my own art abilities. I know from experience how hard it can be to start on the art path and how your own doubts and fears can sometimes hold you back. This is an old drawing that I made a few years ago, and I really love seeing how far I've come and how much I've learned. And I really want to share with you how I went about it and what you can learn as well to improve your own artwork. I believe that everyone is creative and that everyone can learn to draw. And I just want to give you some pointers on how to find your own confidence in practicing art and how to keep going in your art journey, because having a regular art practice has given me so much and I know you can make art a regular habit too. In the meantime, I will show you this drawing of this big cat, I think it's a jaguar, that I did today. The whole drawing took me about 3 hours to make and you can watch the process in real time back on my website. This is the largest color pencil drawing that I've made so far, and I shared it as a course on my website, so you can sign up, draw with me and learn how to draw a big cat yourself. You can see I'm starting with a sketch and I'm not using any grid methods or any measuring methods. I'm just looking at a reference picture and drawing what I see. And it is a little bit less precise than making a grid first, but I just enjoy this process more. Let's talk about confidence. What is confidence? I looked the word up in the dictionary, and the first description is the feeling or belief that one can have faith in or rely on something or someone. I think when it comes to art, the person that you need to rely on or have faith in is very much yourself. You need to have belief in yourself that you can make great art and that you can do it. And yes, it takes practice, and yes, sometimes we all make something that we're not so happy with, but you need to have faith that you can grow as an artist and that you can learn this skill. I think your mindset is so important, and positivity, a positive mindset makes a world of difference. Before you start your drawing, you need to feel positive about the topic that you picked. You need to choose something that gives you joy or strength, or that is a story that is important to you to tell. And during the process, you need to trust that you are going to complete this artwork or complete part of the artwork, whatever the goal is that you set yourself in your artwork today. And you need to have trust in that things are going to be okay. The second description of the word confidence in the dictionary might seem a little bit further away from art, but I actually believe that it's very applicable. The description is the telling of private matters or secrets with mutual trust. And I think that's really beautiful because we put so much of ourselves into our artwork, and it doesn't matter if you are an artist who uses art for activism, or if you are an artist who makes realistic art or animal portraits or people portraits. You put so much of yourself into your artwork that it is quite a private matter, and I really believe that you need to trust that it's going to be okay. Your artwork can be a little bit like a diary. If you want it or not, you put some of your own personality in, and sharing your art with the world can be quite scary, and also think it's not something that you have to do. I would encourage you to do it because the world needs your art and we need to see people's creations, and the more art there is in the world, the better, I think. But it's absolutely something that you can choose to do or not to do, depending on what stage of your life you're in, how confident you feel about what you've made, and if the sharing of your art is pushing you forward or holding you back. If you're an artist who struggles with the fear of white paper, a great tip is to start with some thumbnails on a separate bit of paper. Experiment a little bit and practice with your composition before you embark onto the big project and start filling your sort of main paper. Once you have a little bit of a plan, it becomes much easier to start with a drawing on your nice drawing paper. I do this quite often, mostly for commissions. When I draw my personal work, I often just adventure and start on the paper straight away, but I find that the more pressure there is on an artwork, doing some thumbnails first makes a world of difference. You can see that I've now started to add some color to this artwork. I'm using watercolor pencils today. I'm going to do a sort of underpainting with my watercolor pencils and then go over it with my watercolor and my normal color pencils to add detail. And creating an underpainting is a really great way of adding some initial color to the artwork and giving some softness to the artwork as well. So you can see I'm going over my pencil with a wet brush, spreading out this paint, these watercolor pencil marks, and the color becomes a little bit more vibrant. And I'm going to draw lots of details over this later on, just a little bit on the process that I'm doing at the moment. Practicing art, like the more you practice, the easier it gets. And I think that counts for every skill. I think there's this belief that it takes 10,000 hours to learn a skill. I don't know if 10,000 is the right amount of the right number, but I do believe that the more you practice, the easier it gets, and the more confident you become in your abilities. The better you know what your skills are, what your limitations are, and see limitations as something that you can practice and that you can learn from, instead of something that you should avoid at all costs. The more you practice, the easier it becomes. I try and sketch every single day. I have various sketchbooks that I use for different purposes. A sketchbook for portraits, one for doodles, a watercolor painting sketchbook. I paint a lot on loose paper. I'm working on my commissions and on different projects every day. And it is so much fun to look back on old artwork and realize how far you've come and what you've learned. There's absolutely no shame in looking back at something that you've made years ago and you think, oh, I can do so much better now. There's joy in it. It means that you've grown and that you've learned and that you have developed as a person and as an artist. I'm hoping that this process continues, and that if I look back on the things that I've made this week, today, this month, this year, but if I look back on it in the years to come, that I don't think it's that good anymore, and that I have developed as a person and as an artist again, and can create things that I like so much more than. Perhaps my style will change, perhaps I can create more details, or I've learned to work on my composition, or there are other things that I can add to my artwork that I have learned from stories to tell. There's so much to explore in the world, and there's so much to learn, and I really hope that I keep learning throughout my entire life. Every drawing or painting that you make will teach you something. Some drawings will teach you how to work on proportions. Another drawing will teach you how to go out of your comfort zone. The next drawing or painting will teach you how to use a new material or a new subject. And every piece of art that you make will show a different side of you as an artist. It is absolutely fine to explore and experiment and to try things out and see if you like them or not. And yes, every time we use something new, we might need to find the confidence again, but the more art you make, the easier it is to dip into that confidence and just know it is going to be okay. It is okay to experiment, and it's okay to make mistakes, and that's what life is all about. One of my favorite artists is Frida Kahlo, and she said, "Nothing is absolute, everything changes, everything moves, everything revolves, everything flies and goes away." And I think this is such a beautiful quote. It teaches us that change is everywhere and that we want to grow and evolve as people and as artists. I believe that this concept of ever-changing things is very close to the concept, or the Buddhist concept, of loving kindness. And loving kindness is very important when you practice art, and it means that you need to look at your own work as if you are a close friend. So look at your own work with loving kindness. It's okay to criticize your work, or to see points where you need to improve, or things that you want to learn from. It's okay to look at other people's work and feel inspired, but try not to compare your work to other people's work too much. Everyone is on their own journey, and your artwork is a reflection of your own personal journey into this world. I think loving kindness is such a beautiful concept, and it's something that we should practice throughout our entire life. The way we should interact with others should be through loving kindness, and the way we should interact with ourselves should be through loving kindness as well. And it doesn't mean that sometimes we cannot break away from people, or that we have to do everything that people say, that we have to think that every art that we make is brilliant, because to be fair, sometimes it's not. Sometimes we make things that are not so great. But look at your own work with eyes of loving kindness, with the eyes of a friend who is kind to you. The watercolor pencils that I'm using are not the best quality. Unfortunately they keep breaking and I find it really hard to sharpen them with a normal sharpener, so I decided to use my craft knife to sharpen my pencil. It's a much more delicate way of doing this, and I am adding another layer of dark watercolor pencil to my painting, to my drawing, going over it with water, and I'm really trying to increase the contrast in this piece. Everything has been really light so far, but I want there to be some popping colors, and some of those colors are these black dots in this beautiful fur. I have some better watercolor pencils as well, but these I wanted to use this set. I've not used them for a while, and it's a really wide range of colors, but they were pretty cheap, so at some point I need to invest in some more colors of good quality pencils. I've now switched to my CAS Art set, which are also really reasonably priced but a bit better quality. Once I've done all my layers of watercolor pencils, I will switch to my normal pencils and to my polychromals and my Derwent Pro Color pencils, which are really high artist quality pencils, and they are perfect for adding details. For the under layers, it is okay to use some cheaper materials. But at some point I got a little bit frustrated and I decided to switch it up a little bit more. This fur has so many little details in it, and I tend to draw pretty loose. I don't have the most attention to detail usually, but I really wanted it to have the impression of fur all over this cat's face. So I'm really focusing on putting my pencil strokes in the direction of the fur. This is actually my largest color pencil drawing that I've ever made, I would say. I draw a lot in color pencils, but usually I go for smaller pieces of paper because color pencil tends to take a long time. And I was actually really surprised that this drawing only took me 3 hours. When I looked back at the time that I've recorded almost the entire session. I was a little bit surprised it only took me 3 hours. The reason this was fairly fast is because I made an underlayer in watercolor pencils. If I had made this drawing only using my color pencils and just the blending techniques did come with that, I think the piece would have taken me much longer. So the color pencil is a really great way, or the watercolor pencil is a really great way of speeding up the process a little bit. I also decided to make the background yellow to sort of blend in with this cat. I felt that it almost fades into the background a little bit that way, and I really enjoyed that, so I decided to keep the background really yellow. I was considering making it really dark, but I'm really glad with the choice that I made here. Let the colors all interact with each other. So you can see I'm adding a little bit more water to my watercolor underlayers. I had to let it dry, which is done now. And now I'm going in with my normal color pencil. So I'm selecting the colors I'm going to use first. Lots of browns, a bit of red, some really light pink colors for the light parts of the fur. And with small strokes, I'm going in and start adding detail to my drawing. And this took quite a long time. This was a very precise process, and I really made sure that everything in the layers underneath was completely dry. If your paper is still a little bit wet, or if the watercolors from your watercolor pencils are still a little bit wet, then wait a bit longer because you'll damage your paper if you go over it with color pencil. So the main thing that I worked on is making all these spots or freckles, all these dark marks in the fur much darker. Really increasing the contrast and also add just a bit more detail. Lots of little hairs in that fur. I feel like my drawing is really starting to come together. I spent ages just adding details and more details. It is very important to work with a sharp pencil when you want to add all these fine little hairs. So I spent quite a lot of time sharpening my pencils and make sure they're all ready. And I found the most challenging part of this drawing these white eyelashes, because there's a lot of dark shadows underneath the eyelashes. And I wanted to make sure that that contrast really came through. There's also quite a lot of little shadows in the white parts of the fur. I've made this cat a little bit more yellow, a little bit more vibrant than the reference picture was. It's a bit more white in the reference picture, but I really liked those vibrant yellow colors, so I wanted to add that in a little bit more. Whilst I am drawing, I'm usually listening to a podcast or an audiobook. Sometimes I watch a TV show if it's something that is not too distracting, but I find listening to things usually a bit easier than watching things. I get really easily distracted when I'm doing work, but when I'm drawing I can usually listen to things. I think when you listen to a podcast or to music or to a book, you use a different part of your brain from what you're using when you're drawing, and I find it very relaxing to do. The eyes are the main focus point in this artwork today, and I spent quite a lot of time just adding tiny little lines and increasing the colors, blending the blues and the browns and all the different colors of the eye together to make sure that they are lively and that your attention gets drawn to the eyes. It's also the sharpest area of the photo, of the reference photo. So the background or some parts of this face are a little bit out of focus, but the eyes are really into focus and they're the main part to focus on. So I added a lot of shadow there. Contrast is very important. I say that when you make a drawing, the contrast and the values of the color are often more important than using the exact right color. So make sure your darks and lights are in the right place and the intensity of that is strong enough. And then using the wrong color, yellow, is not such a big deal. You can see when I've zoomed in that I'm adding lots of little strokes. And I start to switch up my colors a little bit. I love vibrant colors, a little bit of rainbow here and there. So I'm adding in some red and some purple, a little bit of green as well in the first, and some colors that you might not expect, but that just add a little bit more depth and interest to the colors. Sometimes you have to be a little bit bold with the colors that you use, and I love colorful, bright pieces. I'm almost finished with this drawing. Thank you so much for watching all the way till the end. If you enjoyed this, make sure you subscribe and remember that you can join this as a little course, a little mini course on my website. If you want to draw or paint along, I will explain step by step what I'm doing and help you make a sketch as well. And yeah, make sure you subscribe, click that little bell at the bottom. I really love having you here. I release videos every week. My name is Irene and thank you so much for being here, and I'll see you around soon. Bye bye.